our history of cross-industry collaboration in delivering real-world solutions, breaking new ground in clean energy, integrating digital technologies into mobility and logistics, and investigating uncharted territory, has enabled Mitsubishi Heavy Industries Group to forge a path toward a safer, more prosperous world for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the World City Summit 2022 plenary, Livable and Sustainable Cities, Combating the Climate Crisis. I'm your host, Nurio, from the Center for Livable Cities. Let me invite you to take your seats as we'll be starting the plenary in a few moments. During this event, we'd like to remind audience members to kindly keep your mask on. Please set your phones and beeping devices to silent mode. In accordance with the Personal Data Protection Policy, it is our duty to inform you that this session will be recorded. If you feel unwell, please approach anyone with an organizer badge. During the session, we invite you to pose your questions using Slido. To do so, please scan the QR code on the screen. Before we begin the session, allow me to highlight the launch of a new publication, a guide to implementing coastal nature-based solutions in Singapore. Jointly developed by the Center for Livable Cities and the National Parks Board, the guide documents a shared understanding on a wide range of nature-based solutions and the important principles and enablers to apply them in an urban coastal context to reduce climate risks, regenerate ecosystem services, and deliver greater society gains for a city in nature. Please use the QR code to download a free version of the publication. Without further ado, please welcome on stage Ms. Indrani Raja, Minister in the Prime Minister's Office and Second Minister for Finance and National Development, to deliver her keynote presentation. Minister, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this plenary. A big thank you to all the panelists and everyone here for joining us at the World City Summit plenary session on combating the climate crisis. Addressing the climate crisis has become a critical priority for cities worldwide. Cities are at the heart of the climate crisis. With their density and concentrated activities, they generate over 70% of the global greenhouse gas emissions and are highly vulnerable to the effects of climate change. On the flip side, however, cities also hold the keys to a sustainable future. Cities have the resources and capabilities to bring about a positive change to the environment. Cities already have the mandate and the opportunity to protect and restore communities and ecosystems that will be impacted by climate change. Urban development need not come at the cost of environmental sustainability if it is thoughtfully and deliberately planned. Coordination across city and national leaders, as well as between public and private sectors, can result in the implementation of impactful strategies and products to fight climate change. COP26 highlighted the need for these multi-sectoral partnerships, not just locally, but globally as well. Over the past few days, we've held many different dialogues and discussions at the World City Summit, and I'm very heartened to hear of all the concrete steps that cities and companies are taking to this fight. It's essential we all do our part, demonstrate climate leadership, and set good examples for other cities to follow. In this spirit, I'm pleased to announce the formation of our inaugural World Cities Summit Knowledge Councils, whose members will meet later this afternoon. The two councils, focusing on the science of cities and urban resilience respectively, bring together some of the world's foremost thought leaders on these topics to identify innovative and actionable ideas to shape livable, sustainable, and resilient cities. The Knowledge Councils will guide and support the Center for Livable Cities research and the future agendas for World Cities Summits. Many cities around the world have set ambitious sustainability goals and have made net zero commitments. These are often accompanied with detailed plans consisting of clear targets and timelines set by the cities. So it's certainly encouraging to see so many cities tackle climate change head-on. Even though the circumstances behind these cities may be different, each demonstrate an admirable commitment to sustainability and net zero emissions. So, for example, in the Glasgow Climate Plan announced last year, Glasgow set a target of net zero emissions by 2030. The plan laid out Glasgow's commitment to action within 5 main themes, covering not just sustainability, but also social equity concerns. This includes adopting a community wealth building approach to support local businesses and communities to create a fairer local economy. Hong Kong also declared a target of net zero emissions by 2050 in the Hong Kong Climate Action Plan, which was also announced in 2021. With carbon emissions already peaked in 2014, the Hong Kong Climate Action Plan focuses more on developing renewable energy, managing energy demand in the built environment, decarbonizing their transport sector, and transforming their waste management systems. Singapore, too, has set our own sustainability goals. Last year, we launched the Singapore Green Plan 2030 to catalyze a nationwide sustainability movement. The comprehensive plan charts ambitious and tangible targets over the next 10 years. We want to strengthen Singapore's economic, climate, and resource resilience, improve the living environment of Singaporeans, and generate new business and job opportunities as part of green growth. It will require a multi-stakeholder, whole-of-nation effort for Singapore to achieve our sustainability goals. This will be enabled by green government, with the public sector leading in environmental sustainability, and green citizenry, where individuals, communities, and businesses play their part. Every city faces its own set of challenges in the quest to achieve net zero emissions, and Singapore is no exception. However, unlike most cities, we are in the unique situation of being both a city and a country. We do not have the luxury of a hinterland or surrounding areas over which to expand. We have to provide for everything: defense, industries, homes, and critical infrastructure, all within our 728 square kilometers of land. Relative to others, it's rather like having to fit everything onto the head of a pin. We also don't have natural resources, land area, or climatic conditions for large-scale deployment of renewable energy sources. All these make it difficult for Singapore to achieve net zero emissions in the same way that cities in larger countries do. The constraints we face make it clear that it is crucial for cities to work together to collectively achieve net zero emissions. By collaborating, cities can achieve much greater environmental and economic benefits together than they can do alone. For example, Singapore's main option for tapping renewable energy is solar energy, but that has its limitations due to intermittency issues and need for space to deploy. One way to incorporate more renewable energy is through partnership with our neighbors and developing regional grids that will allow us to tap on clean energy from other countries. Our Energy Market Authority has initiated cross-border hydropower trade of up to 100 megawatts under the Lao PDR Thailand Malaysia Singapore Power Integration Project. Singapore, in turn, has become a living lab to test bed such collaborative efforts from which other cities around the world facing similar challenges can glean ideas. After several years of R&D and test bedding the use of solar energy, we have built large floating solar farms at Tengah Reservoir and the Straits of Johor. Building floating solar farms has helped us capitalize on the large surface areas of water bodies and allow for solar deployment to be scaled up. Last year, energy firm Sunsip Group announced that they will build the world's largest floating solar farm and power storage system on the Indonesian island of Batam. It will help to reduce the carbon footprint of Batam's industries, as well as create jobs and transfer skills to Batam's clean energy sector. COP26 has advanced the multilateral approach in addressing climate change. I hope the World City Summit will continue to be a key platform for leaders and experts from all around the world to explore such collaboration in the future. While it can be challenging to meet the needs of citizens and at the same time minimize harm to the environment, achieving net zero need not be a zero-sum game. As far as possible, we should try to find systems-wide solutions that maximize synergies between both needs. So, for example, there is growing interest by cities to use nature-based solutions to address a host of urban challenges. These are solutions at the ecosystem level that bring about benefits to both human well-being and biodiversity. Chulalongkorn Centenary Park in Bangkok is the first critical piece of green infrastructure for the city, designed to mitigate detrimental ecological issues. Its green roof is the largest in the country, and the park's filtration system treats water from neighboring areas. It has become a showcase for ecological and social impacts of landscape architecture in dense urban areas. At Sanya Mangrove Park in Hainan, China, previously damaged by tourism development, designers have shaped the land to form interlocking fingers that channel sea tides into the park while reducing the impact of strong storm currents that can be damaging to the mangroves. Singapore's Centre for Liveable Cities, or CLC, and National Parks Board, or NParks, have put together a book on the important principles and enablers for nature-based solutions. These insights were distilled from best practices shared by experts and stakeholders from here and around the world. This book will be launched today. We hope you find the book useful when planning for your respective nature-based solutions projects. Some cities have also planned and developed integrated projects. These projects typically allow for improved efficiencies in terms of space and energy use. Copenhill is a waste-to-energy plant located on an industrial waterfront in Copenhagen, Denmark, that is capable of converting 440,000 tons of waste into clean energy annually. It's built together with an artificial ski slope that visitors can use all year round. In Singapore, Tuas Nexus integrates the Tuas Water Reclamation Plant, or the Tuas WRP, and the Integrated Waste Management Facility, the IWMF, and is planned to meet Singapore's long-term solid waste management and used water treatment needs. Integrating both facilities will result in carbon savings of more than 200,000 tons of carbon dioxide annually and land savings of up to 2.6 hectares. We also want to encourage our citizens to adopt a more environmentally friendly lifestyle and ease them into this green transition. So, Singapore is continuing to invest heavily in public transportation. Our MRT network will grow from 230 kilometers today to 360 kilometers by the early 2030s, and we aim to raise the share of public transport trips up to 75% by 2030. Likewise, we will expand our cycling network to around 1,320 kilometers by 2030 to promote more walking, cycling, and active mobility. To support a switch to electric vehicles or EVs, Singapore will retrofit and develop 8 public housing towns to be EV-ready with electric chargers at all public housing car parks in these towns by 2025. From about 2,000 charging points today, we will have 60,000 charging points nationwide by 2030. There are many challenges ahead, but we must not only not give up the good fight, we must also win it. In this, I'm heartened by the attendance at this WCS, which shows the depth and commitment to addressing these existential issues. So I look forward to hearing from the panel and hope that the discussions at this WCS will bear fruit and catalyze many collaborations and solutions that will help to achieve the sustainable and resilient cities that are the key to our survival. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Minister Indrani Raja. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage our esteemed speakers for the panel discussion for our session, Livable and Sustainable Cities, Combating the Climate Crisis. Please welcome our moderator, Professor Tai Lee Siang, Head of Pillar, Architecture and Sustainable Design, Singapore University of Technology and Design. And our panelists, Mr. Ahmed Abu Taleb, Mayor of Rotterdam, Kingdom of the Netherlands. Mr. Ashok Lavasa, Vice President for Private Sector Operations and Public-Private Partnerships, Asian Development Bank. And Mr. Osamu Ono, Senior Vice President and Chief Regional Officer for Asia Pacific and India, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. During the panel session, you may use the Slido Q&A function if you have any questions for our panelists.
Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to thank Minister for a wonderful speech that sets the stage for this discussion. I know we are standing between you and lunch. We'll keep the runway relatively efficient. Let me just start by setting a bit more of the context. And we have a theme for this plenary as Livable and Sustainable Cities, Combating the Climate Crisis. This theme, or rather, the backdrop of cities team conferences globally sounds all too urgently similar. World cities are a big driver of global warming emissions, but they can play a major role in reversing climate change. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report, or IPCC, found urban infrastructure and activities caused about 2/3 of today's emissions. This means that if cities get their acts together, a lot can be done. The COP26 goals include mitigation to global net zero, adaptation to protect communities and habitats, mobilize finance, and collaborate. 2 outcomes were achieved: the Glasgow Climate Pact and the Paris Rulebook. Now, this means that we now have common, transparent framework for reporting, common timeframes for targets, as well as mechanisms and standards for international carbon markets. Now, I'd like to pose this question to my distinguished panelists. Do cities worldwide have much in common? Can they finally work together to achieve common goals? What are some of the opportunities that cities can do together to urgently combat climate change? So I'd like to start with Mayor of Rotterdam, Ahmed Abu Talib, and followed by Mr. Ashok, and lastly, Mr. Osamu Uno. Mayor, please.
Thank you very much. I would like to argue that it is beneficial for states, countries, cities, states to use the word crisis to make it an opportunity. You know, a lot of leaders in the world, sometimes on national levels, argue that it's easy to talk about a transition towards a climate-friendly city or a nation, but it kills jobs. Sure, it kills jobs. So that's the pain. But smart nations with smart people and smart leaders will argue, and at the same time, we create new jobs. So if we stop CO2 emissions by killing some types of industry, and we create a new types of energy, then we create new jobs. And probably we need more people to do the new jobs than the jobs we kill. And if you consider the line of killing jobs down and the other line is going to grow, the intersection between the two lines, I hope that we have a lot of mathematicians in the audience, that is what we call the transition time. And it's our hands as politicians, as leaders, to make the transition time as short as possible. We can do that. It's in our hands, and it's beneficial to all of us to do that. We in Rotterdam argue that if we want to use the word crisis to create an opportunity, then we simulate the idea of someone who is driving a car and coming out of a bend. What do you do when you come out of a bend? You don't use your brakes, you accelerate. And that's what we did by using a double type of crisis, the climate crisis, but also the COVID crisis. So we thought how great it will be to invest more in the city, to reserve more money to make the city attractive, and to invest more in the energy transition, the solar panels, all the other things. But we decided also to make the city greener than it is. So we developed 7 major green projects for the city, and hope that you will see some pictures of that. 7 large projects together with citizens and businesses for a lot of reasons. The first of all is to make the city attractive. Then, if you make the city attractive, you draw more investors in the real estate, but also in other domains. You do that collectively with citizens, so you have a kind of a social process that you create together. The value of the houses of these people in these neighborhoods will rise, so people will have a better, attractive living environment. We combine these parks and these green areas with walking lanes, but also with other possibilities for bicycles. We try to push the car out of the city. And then if you do that, in the long run, we really believe that it's also reducing the heat in the city, mainly downtown, where there is a lot of traffic and a big congestion. So that's the philosophy we try to do. And in the meantime, we believe that exchanging these ideas and working collectively with the Dutch government, with the national level, will really help us to create new chances. Shell is one of the biggest energy companies in the world. It's investing really billions and billions to build the first large cracker to make hydrogen from green energy coming from the North Sea, windmills. That is going to reduce the CO2 emissions in the port of Rotterdam tremendously. We need that. But we know also from the analysis of the World Energy Agency in Paris that we need, as the world, still fossil sources of energy for another 20, 25 years. Or we cannot wait in the meantime to let all these CO2 emissions go into the air. So what we do is we invest together with the Meta government of Brussels some 500 million euros in constructing one of the largest CO2 systems to capture and store CO2 emissions. We capture the CO2 emissions in the port from the refineries, make them liquid. Technology exists, pump them in huge public pipeline, and then store that in the North Sea former gas fields and oil fields. And we aim also to use the pipeline also to take with us the CO2 emissions coming from the industry in Germany and from south, from Antwerp, from Belgium. If we do that, we reduce the CO2 emissions drastically in our region, but it also will have positive impact on the health of our citizens. So a crisis to me is not a crisis in terms as we define that. It's really difficult to do something with it because a crisis deserves only a crisis management. We try to put a signal of equal crisis equals new opportunities.
Thank you, Mayor. I think certainly opportunities are really looking at crisis is turning around to our advantage. Now, just quick comment before I invite Ashok to talk about your experience in the cities intercity collaboration. Now, the European Union is really getting the European countries to work together to combat climate change. What is the kind of one point that you will bring up to the audience here that it is doing right in encouraging cities to collaborate?
Well, the one sentence is not mine. I will borrow the sentence from a former professor from the Rotterdam University who won a long time ago the Nobel Prize for Economy. And his thesis was sharing equals multiplying.
Thank you.
Think about that. So sharing don't mean you become poor, or if you share together, you become richer.
Thank you. I think that's an excellent takeaway, which many other parts of the world have yet to learn that. Ashok, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to take part in this panel. And I would like to thank the Singapore city, the government, and also the World Cities Summit for this excellent exercise in collaboration, if I can say that, because as Ahmed said, that this is learning by sharing, and by sharing the experience of so many cities in the world, we are bringing together a pool of knowledge which can contribute to our fight against climate change. So let me share a few thoughts on behalf of the Asian Development Bank on how we should collaborate, how we can collaborate both digitally and financially in this combined fight against climate. Now, we are all aware that almost 44 million people are added to the urban population in Asia and the Pacific. That would mean about 120,000 per day. So a great amount of load is falling on the cities, especially those that are in the low-lying coastal region. Now, I think the challenge gets more compounded because this burden is not uniform. Some places are facing the brunt more than the other. Let me deal with two aspects of collaboration. First, on the smart city. In Baguio, Philippines, for example, through the ASEAN Australian Smart Cities Trust, this fund is managed by the ADB. We are working with the city government on a gender transformative flood forecasting and early warning system to mitigate impacts and protect residents, particularly those who are more vulnerable. Now, through this fund support, twin cities from Baguio and Perth to Makassar and Gold Coast, they are collaborating in developing people-centric smart cities to combat climate change through sharing of innovative technology to strengthen resilience against physical climate risk. Secondly, on the investable cities aspect, I think a key area is enhancing city governments' capacities to raise finance for resilient infrastructure. We all know effective public financial management is it enables discipline and it also enables strategic allocation and utilization of scarce public resources. And this is possible through various models, including issuing of municipal bonds, through public-private partnerships, through value capture. So those are some of the aspects that are we focused on for developing capacity in the urban local body. As far as ADB is concerned, in the upstream, ADB can help assess the needs and develop a climate resilient investment roadmap for the cities where you convert the investment priorities of a city into bankable projects. And I think this requires capacity building both in the planners and the city managers. And ADB can provide that support for upstream policy planning as well as to link it with downstream financing of the project. And the other aspect to be taken care of in this is that the investment requirement is very substantial. According to an assessment which was made pre-COVID by ADB, this region would require about $1.7 trillion of investment every year to fill up the infrastructure gap. And it is not possible for governments to fill up this infrastructure gap. It will certainly require a major effort. An estimate is about $200 billion per year from the private sector to fill up this investment. ADB yesterday, in fact today, we have launched a city sustainability initiative called Creating Investable City. And I'll just briefly mention that this initiative provides hands-on advisory support in three key areas. Number one, mainstreaming climate resilience into the city's projects, plans, and budget. Number two, developing resource mobilization strategies for increasing own source revenue and number three, improving creditworthiness to enable cities to access private sector finance. So I would like to conclude by saying that ADB, as Asia's climate bank, has already enhanced its climate financing goals to reach $100 billion between 2019 and 2030. This is an increase from $80 billion. So I would feel that through its innovative investment, strategic thinking, and knowledge, ADB can contribute to the climate fight, to the fight against climate change in the region. And ADB can act as a common link in the collaborative chain for governments to enable them to create an ecosystem which is congenial, and for the private sector to make use of those opportunities which this ecosystem will create for providing sustainable infrastructure to the people and good service.
Thanks, Ashok. In fact, I think what you have just shared is very fascinating because for too long, in fact, I was in the Green Building Council and we tried to combat climate change by fighting one green building at a time. And we subsequently realized that we can't do that. We need to tackle the whole city. And in fact, what you're pointing us to is tackling a series of cities, a network of cities. I like the two ideas on smart cities as well as financing, and certainly the sustainable initiatives, city sustainable initiatives. I think those in the audience who find this a useful way forward certainly should speak to Ashok after this panel discussion. And I like us to keep this idea going about cities working in collaboration as a network, because there are strong cities, there are weaker cities that need help. and we can't solve the problem all by one city at a time. So next, maybe I invite Mr. Osamu Ono to share your thoughts on the same line of thinking.
Thank you very much, Professor Tai, and also the distinguished guest. I'm Ono Osamu. I'm from the industry side, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. So especially for last 5 years, we are facing the strong and tremendous pressure of the decarbonization. So we are supporting the infrastructure and also the energy sector. So we have struggled how to improve this decarbonization with our customer and also the society. So, and we provide some of the solutions, but it's quite unfortunate. It's not well spread well. So the data cities, government, and also the companies and the individual, so must indeed work together to combat this climate change. So I would like to say there is a technology and also seed of the innovation, and we can utilize these seed of the innovation and also technology as much as possible. But the key is how we can to accelerate this kind of technology and also the innovation over the world. So I feel that's a finance issue. It's one of the key to accelerate this decarbonization. So like a green finance and green bond, that is the one good material. So in fact, we Mitsubishi Heavy Industry, as a one private company, we also issued a green bond in 2020, around the 25 billion Japanese yen, and in 2021, 15 billion Japanese yen, not so big amount. But issuing this green bond, also we have the opportunity to further the investment to the renewable technology and innovation. So we have the technology now for the hydrogen firing gas turbine, as also the ammonia firing gas turbine. So those will provide green fuel, zero emission. Our target is up to the 2025. We will complete those gas turbine, 100% hydrogen firing, as well as ammonia firing. So I think the cities in the advanced country, they can issue also this green bond. Then that city can make an investment to over the world, especially for the Southeast Asia. That's a good opportunity to make the investment. So that investment can accelerate to combat that climate change, because in order to make the investment, such the new innovation, of course that investment is duly required. So we also the support to provide such kind of hydrogen firing gas turbine as well as the geothermal, which will suit in this area. But duly need such kind of financial scheme like the green bond or the green finance, and also the carbon tax. Such kind of financial scheme, I believe they rarely accelerate to combat this climate change. So I hope this trend will continue and more accelerate to spread over the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Osamu Ono. Next, I'm going to turn my attention to each of your respective areas of interest and, again, your fight against climate change. Let me start with Mayor. I read with great interest that the Rotterdam City government and more than 100 businesses signed the Rotterdam Climate Agreement. I think earlier you also allude to that. That was in 2019, to progress towards a fully circular society and climate neutral city by 2050. This sounds like a great example of true collaboration. So in terms of mitigation adaptation, cities, of course, will be affected by climate change effects. What are some of the tools and resources that your city is exploring for climate change mitigation? to protect and restore any affected communities and ecosystem. I think you are also planning to show some slides about what your city has done. Maybe you can share with the audience on your effort.
We started in 2019 by having a kind of a city commitment with the companies in the industry, in the port. And that's really important for us to collaborate together because 60% of the land in the city is in private hands. We cannot finish the job at the government side alone. So, and then we decided also to design 7 major projects, as you may see on the slides. Yeah, they appear here. 3 of them are in downtown, and 4 are not in downtown. To work together with the public sector, and also with the inhabitants to, as you may see in this picture, how important it is to use the former port basins that are not in use anymore as port basins for other activities to make the city attractive, to reduce heat stress. On the other hand, we really believe that the transition is more than only mitigating things. Mitigation is probably provided by the industry, Mitsubishi and all the partners, is for the short term. That's not going to help us for the long term. For the long term, it means that we have to adapt to the new situation. Our friends in Dubai must adapt to the fact that in the summer, the temperature drops to 25 degrees and there is flooding. Never happened in the Arab Peninsula. That's new. So we have to adapt to that new situation. Rotterdam City must adapt to the fact that the threat that we have been facing last decades of rain is now changed in the threat of drought. 8 weeks of drought in the city of Rotterdam can be dramatic because a low stand of the water in the rivers means that the top side of the dikes and levees become vulnerable. And then when there is a lot more water, the dikes may break. And if any dike in the city breaks, I cannot evacuate anyone. It will be a dramatic situation. So drought is another danger, and not only rainfall and flooding. So adapting as a city to create more space for water by creating more green spaces, as it's now shown in this picture, must be combined with a long-term philosophy how to make the city more resilient in terms of also periods of drought. We have seen in Europe last week 40 degrees Celsius. Never happened. Never happened. And then suddenly the temperature drops to 16, 17 degrees and heavy showers in the short term. That is a situation that we have to adapt to it. So I draw your attention to the Global Adaptation Center that we have in Rotterdam. That's a UN institute under the leadership of Mr. Ban Ki-moon. I'm on the board of it. And the idea is that we help coastal places in the world to develop an adaptation strategy, to learn how to work with Mother Nature. My conclusion last 13 years working as mayor also in this domain is you cannot win from Mother Nature. It's better to learn how to live with it and for the short term to use technology to mitigate.
If I could invite you to speak a little bit about water. Just earlier on, we had a passionate plea by you to include water into the climate change agenda strongly. Perhaps 2 minutes airtime for you to push for the agenda?
Well, without water, no life. That's for sure. And I'm always surprised to see we have places in the world with a lot of water and have places with shortage of water. The reason for me as a person to migrate from my village in Morocco to the Netherlands was water, droughts. And I'm happy to tell you that with a couple of friends, we last year decided and succeeded in giving my former village a water source with a pump working on solar systems. People are happy, and it was there last year to celebrate that moment, to drink the water with my former village inhabitants. What a big change it is in such an environment. We have a pipeline from the Ural in Russia bringing oil to Germany and to Rotterdam. That is 9,000 kilometers. 9,000 kilometers. The electricity grid in Europe is connected and integrated between Finland and southern Spain. That's more than 5,000 kilometers. There is not a huge water pipeline in the world to connect countries or to connect regions in the world. And more than that, water becomes probably subject for war. I'm witnessing, like you all, how things are developing between Ethiopia and Egypt in the Sudan. The building of a dam in Ethiopia will have a dramatic impact on the water household in Egypt. And Egypt without the Nile is nothing. So probably we have a new tension in the world created by water. I should say, talking about climate issues, talking about the energy must be also a great moment also to pay more attention to water, because primarily probably we can survive without energy because we can walk instead of taking a car. We have alternatives, bus 11, but we cannot survive without water. So that's really a strategic thing that we have to rethink, and it's a painful, I think, subject for a lot of leaders in the world to talk about. But water is not for free. It's not only a costly commodity, it's a commodity without people cannot live. So I would like to give it more attention than we do.
Thank you, Mayor. I resonate with you that for too long, in climate change fight, we talk more about carbon, we talk more about energy, but I would add water to it. Thank you. Well, turning to Ashok, ADB plays a pivotal role in partnering countries to develop sustainably, especially in public sector projects through the PPP model. One of your focus areas is regional cooperation and integration, or RCI. Now, in COP26, it again highlighted the need for multi-sectoral partnerships locally and globally as cities aim towards net zero. In your opinion, what governance structures need to be in place to initiate collaborations and partnerships with public, private, and people sectors to catalyze climate resilient investment into cities?
I think any climate urban governance structure will require a very strong collaboration with a range of partners. If we have to make financing sustainable and we have to scale it up and make it secure. So I'll focus on three types of collaboration. One is we have to strengthen the vertical and horizontal linkages for climate action. What I mean by that is that we are seeing that cities are in the process of preparing climate action plans, which is something which needs to be encouraged. But while the cities prepare their climate action plan, I think it is important that these action plans are aligned with the nationally determined contributions and also the national adaptation plans. I think the advantage of doing that is that you make your plans amenable to getting financing from the national action plans that might be there. And also you have a better chance, better possibility of getting financing from international sources. So I think that is one aspect. And as we prepare these plans, I think there is equally a need for assessing the requirements of different sectors and integrating them into creating your city's action plan. On ADB's part, I just want to mention that we have just created a sustainable sub-national financial monitor. And this is a country-specific knowledge product to help subnational governments understand the landscape for climate resilient infrastructure finance. The second aspect that I would like to emphasize on is strengthening the engagement with the private sector for climate action. So it is important that private sector is involved at the time of planning so that their viewpoint and their needs are understood. If necessary, innovative financial instruments are devised. And in this context, I want to mention one example where ADB, through its public-private partnership, supported the Basis Conversion Development Authority in Philippines. With our transaction advisory services, we assisted them in doing a tendering process for public-private partnership. And I think there were 3 or 4 major benefits out of that. One is it led to a considerable enhancement in their master plan. It helped them to develop a resilient framework. There was a river study that was done. There was a hydrological study that was done. And in the end, we found that all the private sector investment utilized these 4 elements in crafting their investment. So today, if you see the way in which that city has developed, you find a lot of elements which has come in, which have been incorporated because of ADB's association. And the third thing that I want to mention is partnership with communities. I think this is equally important. And in this regard, I want to mention an example of community participation where ADB, under the revitalizing of informal settlements and their environments initiative, we supported the development of pilot projects on nature-based solutions in some settlements in the city of Makassar in Indonesia. The project improved access to water supply, something that was being talked about, and sanitation services in 6 informal settlements, which were not networked. So to sum up, I think I would say there are 4 important elements. One is the vertical integration. The second is there has to be sectoral harmonization. And the third is private sector involvement. And the fourth, I think, which is very critical, is community participation.
I have participated in some PPP projects, and of course, there are success and there are, I wouldn't say failure, but challenges. If you were to name one ingredient for success, or even for that matter, one ingredient for failure, what would it be?
Allow me to name 2. One,
Sure.
I think, is integrated planning is very important, very crucial before any project is launched. And the second is that you need to develop a very transparent framework, an arrangement which very transparently sets out the allocation of risks.
Thank you. Thank you for the golden nuggets of lesson there. In the interest of time, I'll move on to Mr. Osamu Ono. Your organization is spearheading power generation, technologies, and solutions. I read with interest that you said, complementing our extensive experience and long-term strategic partnerships in Asia Pacific is our deep understanding of the diverse cultures and distinct needs of the region. I quote you. So question to you is, what are some key tools and strategies your organization used to initiate the collaborations and partnerships with the public, private, and people sector?
Yes, that's a partnership. Collaboration is definitely required and also the essential. So, because of to combat the climate change, that is a great challenge with the fighting spirit. So the solution is not beyond our existing way. That means different way, or we have to jump to different stage. So that's why we share all the knowledge or the inspiration to others. So for example, that is why we have opened our factory and facility in the city of Yokohama. We invited so many venture firms. They have the very, very interestingly, the technology and the knowledge and very strong spirit. So it's not relating our business, completely different. Some of them, they are like a house manufacturer, and some part is like the food producer. So such kind of interface of the other industry or the other knowledge, other experience, it's very, very important. So they have the small farm, but they want to have some of the large size of the facility. So that's why we open a factory in the facility and very nominal expenditure for them. So other example is in Singapore. So we co-working with the National Environment Agency. That's a waste to energy project, PS One. It's just started the commercial operation from this April. So this is the public-private partnership project. So we will co-work with the National Environment Agency for the further 25 years operation and maintenance. So this is really the very close relationship with the government. Then we could achieve this kind of the project. The one private sector cannot do this kind of long and very big, and also so contribute to the society. That is really appreciated to the Singapore government. And also we are proceeding some collaboration with the Indonesian government, like utility PLN, as well as the Institute Technology of the Bandung for the biomass firing. So in this Asia Pacific, so many material of the biomass. Biomass is also the carbon neutral. So we are exploring the appropriate material of the biomass fuel, as well as how to efficient burning for those. And another thing is we are also collaborating with co-working with the Japanese government. The Prime Minister Kishida announced the Asian Energy Transition Initiative. We are now exploring to utilize such the initiative. That's opportunity. We are looking for a partner how to utilize this initiative. That is quite helpful to accelerate our research and development of the decarbonization. And also we co-working in Singapore, like the green data center with Kepler. We are now the proceeding feasibility study of the Kepler data center. And also we co-working in Australia, like producing the green hydrogen and green ammonia. We made an investment to the group of the H2U. So the Australia and also the Singapore has a good relationship. So I really hope that's the more good future between the Singapore and Australia, as well as we could participate to collaborate, such the more close tie for the government. So this kind of the relationship, collaboration, and partnership definitely require to accelerate, to realize to combat climate change as well as decarbonization. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I got to round up this plenary session with a softer question and something which I think you will find interesting to answer. We mentioned several times about collaboration, public, private, people. And a city is not a city without people. So my final questions to all of you is that government has taken initiative, institutions has come up with new ideas about how to encourage cities to collaborate. Private sector is putting in its effort because we all know that we have an earth to save. But how can we better engage citizens and stakeholders to become active players in climate action? What would you do? Mayor, you are overseeing the city of huge number of people. How do people or Rotterdam respond to your call? How do you encourage and motivate them?
Well, sometimes it seems that apparently climate issues are there and people are living there fighting to survive every day. The economy, the jobs, the COVID, trying to manage the budgets in a way that they reach the end of the month safely. So sometimes it's a very far away debate, a far away discussion. So the issue is how to bring it closer to citizens. So let me give you one example that I did in one of the neighborhoods where I work 1 day a week. So I leave my office, take office in a nursing home, a small office, meeting in the town, working with citizens. I have wonderful pictures with me, but are not available on the screen to show you how we do that. So we sometimes decide to close a street a day. We, the city, provide the necessary ingredients, including plants and other stuff, and ask citizens to do the work. Just to break part of the sidewalk and to give them the plants, to put the plants with their own hands there. And someone in the street is making snacks, and the other one is taking coffee. And so a collaborative action in the whole street. At the end of the day, the whole street is green. It takes little effort, little budget. And the funny thing about this approach is people become the owner of their own green street. They will take care of it because they put the plants there. So if there is drought, they will give it water. And then they're going to preserve it for the long run. These are the small actions that you need, but thousands of small actions will really have an effect in the city. A brilliant guy who was from my own party, from Labour, serving the country for many years as the final advisor to any government of any color in the Netherlands, Cenk Willink. I Googled the man, Cenk Willink, wrote a very small book. Unfortunately, it's not only available in Dutch. And the title of it is Think Big, Act Small. Think big about how to green the city. Act small, do that street by street. And it's very important that leaders appear in the streets and work together with the citizens, using your bare hands to put the plants over there, or maybe to prepare bread and butter for the kids that are walking around. My big problem with COP26 and 28 and 27 is that there is a lot of talking, ideological talking of our leaders. And yes, we need that talking. As long as we're talking, there is peace. Please continue to do that. But I see a big gap between what the local leaders are doing with our citizens and the ideological talking. And that's a failure in our systems. So if you ask me what I was happy to join the COP26 in Great Britain, I did not. I had better work to do in my own streets.
Thank you for the great reminder that, yes, give him a round of applause, please. I think we should all take a page from that, and after this conference, take off our jacket and go out in the street and do something. Well, next to you, Ashok, you are a man in the financial institutions. You look at things at the macro level, you look at funding, you look at PPP projects, but yet you mentioned community earlier on. What is your perspective about how to get the citizens activated?
Well, I think the first is 3 R's, and those 3 R's are reduce the gap between rhetoric and reality. I think that is most important. The second is that we must try to find collaborative ways to fulfill the commitments that are made. The third is that we should focus a lot on judicious use of natural resources, even if you have them in abundance. Because I think injudicious consumption of resources is what could be the reason for where we are today. So we have to focus a lot on judicious use of natural resources. Avoid profligacy. I think that is, and the other practical things that I would mention is that we have to scale up our action, both in mitigation and adaptation. Perhaps adaptation more than mitigation is very important. The financial institutions, multilateral banks, they have to find ways in which the private sector can be involved, and innovative instruments have to be found in which private sector is encouraged to invest in adaptation also, not only mitigation. And I think the final thing that I would like to say is that the message is very loud and clear. Do it together. Do it today. I think that is the key message.
Thank you. So finally, we have Mr. Osamu Ono, and I've been a long time admirer of your society. The Japanese people has always been well known as very sustainable in more ways than one. Unfortunately, I can't make my way there without joining a tour group right now. So what is your take in terms of perhaps not so much in activating, because they seem to be already activated? What is a secret that you could share with the audience here?
Yeah. So I would like to say our competence is like technology and innovation. But in order to combat this climate change, also we should proceed in right way. But in order to proceed that right way, I really in place through the World City Summit, hearing distinguished mayors and all the other distinguished guests to understand what is going on in each cities and also the environment. So deep and vast understanding of this kind of circumstance, so we can proceed to move forward in right way. So innovation and technologies. And also we should maybe change over the mindset, also to keeping helping each other. That is also the contribute to the helping the earth. That is really the right way to proceed our decarbonization and also the climate change. So I really appreciate it to be here and quite precious time to understand what is going on over the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, I'll bring this plenary discussion to a close. And again, I will not take longer time to separate you from lunch. So let me just invite you to put up a round of applause for my three distinguished panelists.
Thank you, Professor Tai Lee Siang, Mir Ahmed Abu Taleb, Mr. Ashok Lavasa, and Mr. Osamu Ono for this insightful discussion. We have now come to the end of the session. May I invite our panelists to remain on stage for a photo, please. For our audience members, you are welcome to visit the Smart Cities Expo, Expo booths, and the Singapore Pavilion, which is open until 7:30 p.m. today. Do catch the co-located events organized by our partners in the afternoon in the various rooms shown on the screen. For delegates who are participating in the site visits, please gather at the Level 1 porte cochere after your transportation. It is also our great pleasure to invite you all to the World City Summit Asia Infrastructure Forum Industry Networking Night at 6 p.m. tonight on the Expo floor, where you may enjoy a celebratory evening of networking amongst industry experts. Playbacks of these plenary sessions will be made available in our virtual conference, which will be starting from 10th August and will include replays of our in-person sessions and other new content. Please scan the QR code on screen for more information about the World City Summit 2022 virtual conference. Before you leave, please use the QR code or link to fill in our feedback form. See you at the World City Summit 2024. Lunch will be served in this room and desserts will be available for self-collection at the Singapore Pavilion and Smart Cities Expo, which are on your left and right exits.